I don't know about you, but prayer is one of those things that, while is important to me and is something that I know I rely on, can be a bit difficult at times.
Prayer. It's a core aspect of our relationship with God. A conversation with God, thanking Him for the things that He has blessed us with, and asking Him for help and guidance in various aspects of not only our lives, but the lives of others. A conversation of thanksgiving and worship. It is something that we are taught to do continually and without ceasing, but yet it is something that many of us often struggle to do. Something that we often tend to just leave for before our meals and before going to bed.
At times, I am so filled with passion that I make sure to set time aside to pray, to spend time with God. But then there are other times when I struggle to maintain a healthy prayer life, particularly in busy seasons of my life where I have just enough energy to go to work, get home, get all my chores done, and then get back into bed. There are days when I wake up and I start my day with a prayer before I even get out of bed. But then there are other times when I just wake up, drag myself out of bed, get to work, get home, and then drag myself back into bed. It is at this point that I realize that I haven't even prayed at all throughout the day, except for the quick prayer I said before having my lunch. And then I decide to pray, but after a few sentences, I fall asleep. What's worse, I found, is that when I get into this cycle of just getting out of bed and getting through the day without praying because I'm busy, my relationship with God begins to fall by the wayside, and I start taking on the pressures of life, the stress of work and getting all the chores done and paying all the bills and so on. I begin to put that all on myself, and my stress and anxiety begins to increase.
So, I recently decided that I wanted to make a change to this, to start a positive habit of prayer. But how was I going to do this? I remembered an activity I did when I was a kid at Sunday school. The activity involved me taking an ordinary rock and then decorating it with a Bible verse. I was then taught to put this rock underneath my pillow so that when I would go to bed at night, I would remember to pray and thank God for the day. I was then taught to put this rock on the ground so that when I would wake up and I put my feet on the ground, I would remember to thank God for the new day and ask Him to help me in the day ahead. The rock was meant to help me create a habit. Now, while I didn't truly comprehend the idea as a kid, when I thought about it recently, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Or, in this case, a ton of rocks.
You see, it is thought that there are two types of habits. Passive habits, the habits that arise from exposure to things that we get used to over time, such as a high altitude climber gradually adapting their bodies to get used to working with the lower levels of oxygen available to them as they ascend to higher altitudes. And then there are active habits, the habits that we develop with repeated behavior, such as a dancer practicing a particular routine over and over until it is second nature to them.
According to decades of psychological research, the repetition of a simple action in a consistent context leads to the action becoming a behavior. So I decided to apply what I was taught as a child through the prayer reminder rock to my life today, but in a more modern way.
Okay, so I'm now going to set up some alarms on my phone to remind me to pray throughout the day. The idea is that no matter what I'm doing, no matter how busy I get, I will stop and pray. I'm going to do this for a few days, preferably a week, with the hope that with this repeated behavior, I'll be able to cultivate a habit. I want to train myself to keep praying no matter what activity I'm doing and no matter how busy I get. I don't want prayer to be just limited to a certain location or certain time, but rather I want my prayer life to be a part of everything I'm doing, whether that be at work or whether I'm exercising. No matter what I'm doing, I want to keep praying. I want to be able to teach myself that prayer is a part of everything I do, and it's not just reserved for a certain time or location. Whether I'm at work, at home, or in the office, or whether I'm exercising, no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm doing groceries, I want to know and teach myself that I can pray in all circumstances.
I recently read about prayer in Judaism. For some religious Jews, prayer is an obligation that is fulfilled several times a day through recital of various prescribed prayers contained in a prayer book called the Siddur. There are prayers for almost every event and time of the day, such as I mentioned in my last video, the Modeh Ani prayer, which is the prayer that some Jews recite upon waking. There are even prayers for when Jews go to the bathroom in the morning. Yep, you heard me right. In other words, for Jews, prayer is something that is done continually and consistently. Now, this way of prayer and living may be a bit different to some of our more Western mindsets. But when thinking of it, I find it beautifully inspiring. Inspiring in the fact that for Jews, prayer is a very intentional thing they do throughout the day. It is not relegated to before their meals or before falling asleep, or even just before they need something from God. No, for a Jew, no matter what kind of day you are having, you will thank God not only for the food that He blesses you with, but also for the fresh start that He gives you each and every morning, and even for bodily functions, which I think many of us take for granted. As I did this experiment throughout the week, I began to learn more about how prayer worked for me personally. While I started off by trying to pray at 3 set times per day, I soon found myself increasingly aware of my need and desire to pray, and I began to pray more often outside of these allocated times. Whenever I began to feel stressed or upset, happy or joyful, no matter how I felt, I would have the thought to pray, even if it was for something small throughout the week, even if it was just for finding a parking spot at the supermarket.
Okay, so it's been about 3 weeks and 1 haircut later, and what have I learnt from this experiment? So, the elephant in the room. What did I think about the alarms themselves, and did I find them useful? I've written down some notes as I've gone through this experiment through the last 3 weeks. So, about a week and a half into the experiment, I wrote down this thought. One thing I will say that I liked about the alarms is that there were times throughout the week when I was stressing out, whether that be in relation to work, personal commitments, or just my to-do list throughout the day. And when an alarm would go off on my phone to remind me to pray, a sense of relief would come upon me as I would remember that I could release all my worries in prayer and start over, knowing that God will assist me and help me and provide for me throughout the day to get me through it. And I think that's one benefit I've found in using these alarms. While I have been trying to be more intentional in my prayer and to pray in all circumstances, sometimes I would inevitably get caught up in the day and the task I was doing and forget to pray. The alarm would serve as a great reminder to let go, slow down, and release my worries to God. But these alarms would also serve as a great reminder outside of work. I do enjoy occasionally unwinding and either playing a video game or just watching a TV show or movie with my wife. In these occasions, when the alarm would go off, I would really enjoy just talking to God and thanking Him for the moment, this time that I got to spend with my wife, or this time I got to spend relaxing. To thank Him for the blessing of the life that I live. Because if you think about it, if you're watching this video right now on YouTube, that means you have access to electricity, the internet, and a phone or tablet or computer. And it's so easy to take these things for granted, as well as your life generally. There are so many people out there in the world who don't even have access to clean water. So yeah, these alarms have served as a great reminder for me in these circumstances to thank God for the life that I have. And I suppose that is what 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 verses 16 to 17 is all about. Rejoice always and pray without ceasing. So, will I continue to use these alarms? I think so, at least for the foreseeable future. You see, while I have learnt to fill up my day with more prayers than just these 3 alarms that I've set up, these alarms serve as a great base for my prayers generally. So on days where I'm just very busy, these alarms serve as a great foundation. Now, in terms of the things that I've learnt to assist me in my prayer life more generally, there's a few things I want to share. Firstly, when praying, I have found it helpful to create an atmosphere. Now, this will vary from person to person, but what I have found, and what I mean by this, is that at times when I have gone to pray, I have found it beneficial to go into my room and put on some nice instrumental praying music. So I'd go on YouTube and just type in instrumental praying music and put on one of those videos. And this music would help me get in the zone to pray. Now, I suppose for others, lighting a candle and turning off the lights might be something they find beneficial. I recommend for you to find whatever it is that helps you get into a different mindset to pray, as it really does help you clear your mind to be more intentional with how you pray. I found this better for me than just going to bed, for instance, to pray and then falling asleep. Now, the second thing I've learned is that prayer is more than just talking. Sometimes prayer can just be you being quiet and slowing down in your day and just resting in God's presence. Sometimes God will speak to you through these moments. Now, the third thing that I've learned is that prayer does not need to be a long-winded conversation. What I have found, especially in doing this experiment of praying when my alarms would go off, is that prayer is sometimes best kept to just a simple thank you or Lord, please help me through this. Connected to this, Matthew chapter 6 verse 7 says, "And when you pray, do not keep on babbling like pagans, for they think that they will be heard because of their many words." Now, my fourth and last tip or thing that I've learned from this experiment and being more intentional with my prayer is that it is helpful to picture who you are speaking to when you pray. Sometimes when I am struggling to pray, I find it helpful to visualize me speaking to God, who is a king, and as a result to be more intentional with the words that I choose and the way I guess I'm conducting myself in prayer. Just think about you being told that you are going to meet an important person that you respect, whether that be a politician or a celebrity, whoever it is. Imagine how much time you would spend thinking about what you're going to wear, or doing your makeup, or doing your hair, and then thinking about how you're going to act and what you're going to say. Picture how, when sitting down with that person, you would be thinking about every single word coming out of your mouth. While we have a loving God that accepts us for who we are, I think it is still important that we approach Him with reverence and respect, and to actually be intentional in prayer. I have found that this way of thinking has been very helpful in my prayer life. So yeah, those are some of the thoughts that I've had and the things that I've learned about prayer in doing this experiment, in being more intentional about prayer over these last 3 weeks. The takeaway point of this video is not meant to be for you to go out and start setting up alarms on your phone to remind you to pray 3 times a day, or to make you start stressing out about the words that you speak during your prayer time. No, instead this video is just meant to be to share what I have learned in trying to be more intentional in my prayer, and to encourage you to be more intentional in your prayer. To take whatever steps that you need to take personally to help you draw closer to your Creator in prayer. And to encourage you to not take prayer for granted, because prayer is such a blessing. There was a rabbi who once said that when you feel heavy-hearted, you should speak to the Almighty just as a child speaks to his father. One does not need formal prayers for this. Rather, speak to your Heavenly Father in any language you wish. Prayer is such a blessing. To think that we have a Creator, the King of the universe, who is willing to listen to us and to let us pour out our hearts to Him. One that is willing to listen to us as a father would listen to his child. I want to finish by saying that if you are someone who does struggle with prayer, for whatever reason, it may be a bit ironic, but consider praying to God, asking Him for help with prayer, because He is a Father that wants to listen to you. Thank you everyone for watching this video. I pray that you've found this helpful and beneficial to you in some way, and that you are able to find ways to grow closer to God in terms of your prayer life. Please remember to give this video a like and share it with anyone you think may find it helpful. Also, please consider subscribing to this channel for more videos like this one. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.